Hello, everyone. I'm interviewing Ron Miscavige, who is an independent musician, but also someone who is deeply involved with the Church of Scientology. And he's come on the podcast to tell us all about it. How are you, Ron?
I'm doing fine, Sargon.
Great. So it was in 2012 that you left the Church of Scientology. Is that correct?
Well, not exactly correct. I didn't leave. I escaped. It is
That's
a little bit different scenario. On March 25th, 2012, I drove out of the gate in the cult's compound in Hemet, California, and I literally planned that escape for 6 months, Sargon. So
well.
that's
Okay. Well, let's. Should we start at the beginning then? How did you find yourself getting involved in Scientology?
okay. That would be good because the backstory is, I think it's fairly interesting.
I bet it is.
Yeah, okay. I had a friend, Nelson Sandy. He's still my friend. He's a musician. He's a singer, actually. Matter of fact, he's the one that told me I used to be a doctor, but I lost my patience. I still think it's funny, you know. And one day we're talking. As a matter of fact, another one he did. We were playing a gig in Greenwood Lakes, New York, and we got off the bandstand, and a guy came over to the bar, and he said, "Nelson, you're a great singer. Can I buy you a drink?" And Nelson said, "No, but can I have the money?" He was quick on the uptake on all
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
So Nelson said to me one day, "Ron, how would you like to make an extra $100,000 this year?" I said, "Are you kidding me? I mean, this is the 60s." So he took me to an opportunity meeting for a multi-level marketing concept. I'm sure you're familiar with this type of thing, right?
Yeah, I see where this is going. Go on.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm at the meeting, and there's a guy talking to somebody standing to the left of me, and he said to this girl, "I'm a Scientologist." I stopped talking to the guy I was talking to, looked at him and said, "Wait a minute, what is that?" Well, I pinned him down, and I had him tell me about it for a good 20 minutes. And for whatever reason, that name sounded great to me, and it just piqued my interest.
Hmm.
And he told me of somebody who would teach Scientology at his cafeteria. So the guy's name was Frank Ogle, and this is in Woodbury, New Jersey. So every Tuesday I'd get down there, and he'd talk about concepts, about communication, about interpersonal relationships, and various concepts. And after about a month of going there, I figured, well, I got it. So I knew what it was all about, and I stopped going. Now, let's go earlier. My son David, when he was born with a severe case of asthma, and it would come up on him every once in a while, and it was, I mean, terrible to see a little infant like that catching their breath and you think they're going to die.
Yeah.
This was the bane of his life, and it used to tear my heart apart. And I was the one who would always try different solutions. I would take him to a doctor. The doctor gave him shots of adrenaline. And I just innately knew that this is not okay to give a little baby or a little kid shots of adrenaline. So things would happen, I remember Frank Ogle talking about auditing, which is another word for counseling that they do.
Hmm.
And David was a young kid. I guess at the time he was about 8 years old, and he was still having these. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to call Frank Ogle and see if he can give him an auditing session to help his asthma. So I went down to the cafeteria. I took David out of school one day. I went down there and I said, "Frank, do you think you can help him?" He says, "Well, let's give it a shot." So he took David in, and they were in an auditing or counseling session for 45 minutes. David came out, and I said, "Hey, how's it going?" He says, "Dad," he's unhandled. He was bright, and he never had another severe asthmatic attack as a young kid. That was his epiphany, as far as I'm concerned. And as you know, David is the head of the Church of Scientology now.
Oh, is he?
And
I didn't know. I'm actually not
oh,
very well versed in Scientology, I'll be honest.
okay, well, no, he is. As a matter of fact, that's why my book that I come out with it is called Ron Miscavige. Excuse me, it's called Ruthless Scientology: My Son David Miscavige and Me. That's because he heads the church.
Right.
Since I left, my family is disconnected from me. I've lost my family due to this.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry to hear
But
that. So, yeah.
okay, but
Do carry on.
let's
Yeah.
get back. Let's get back to the story.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that was it. Now I thought to myself, if this can do that for him, I'm going to get my whole family involved. So then in 1970, I took my whole family to a proper, what they would call a mission. And that's my wife and 4 children. And we all started doing Scientology. And that's how I got involved. It was through the fluke of that session that he had as an auditing session that handled his asthma for his childhood. I mean, he got some attacks, but never with the severity prior to that. And that is how I got involved.
Right, okay. So,
now,
yeah, sorry, Karen, yeah.
Okay, so let's go forward with this. So this is a bit of a backstory, and then I think we'll have grounds to ask questions. Well, you can ask questions anytime.
No, please do go on. I'm genuinely curious about how all this plays out.
Okay, so now I took my whole family to this mission in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. We got extremely involved. The next year, well, actually 2 years, I sold my house. I had 3 cars. Sold that, took my savings, and took my entire family to St. Hill in England, in East Grinstead, Sussex County. I'm sure you know where that is.
Yeah, but sorry, did you say that you took your savings, or they took your savings?
No, I did.
Right. Okay.
I did, and I figured this would be the best investment. Listen, I was so sold on Scientology. I used to get people to join it, and
right.
I was what they call a Kool-Aid drinker. I mean, in 100% of the word, that was it. It was it. So I took everybody over and we studied Scientology. We were there for a year and 3 months. We came back. I went over again. That was for another 3 months, a year and 3 months. And while we were there that time, I did an album and I got a recording deal with Polydor, and it came out, and I got a writer's contract with Chappell's. BBC asked me to play on the air. And that, we can go into this a little later. It was my first introduction to some executive who was in Scientology, who was corrupt. And I should have seen the handwriting on the wall at that point, but I didn't. But anyway, that's what I did that second time. And by the way, I just did a podcast on that, on the album. It's now available after, 40 years. And it's called Ron Miscavige, Timeless. And anybody who's curious about this, you could hear what BBC heard and got me they invited me to play on the air. So that was the second time. Now, we come back to the States, and David is laying in bed. I came home from work one night, and I saw him laying there, and I said, "What's up, kid?" Because he looked like he was thinking about something. He says, "Dad," he says, I don't want to go to school anymore. I said, "What? Why? What's up?" He said, "Well, he said, all the kids, or nearly all of the kids, take drugs. Nobody listens to the teacher. It's just a complete waste of time." He says, "I want to go and help L. Ron Hubbard." Now, he's 15 years old. I thought to myself, good Lord, see, he needs my permission to do this. You can't as a minor age. So I thought about it, and he just all happened in a few minutes. I remember my own life when I was out of high school, and I was trying different things. And finally, I wanted to join the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. And I was 17 years old, and my dad had a sign for me. And I remember when I brought the recruiter up and asked him to sign, he said, "Good Lord, Ronnie, they're the first ones in. Are you sure you know what the hell you're doing?" I said, "Yeah, I really want to do this." As it turned out, I'll tell you, Sargon, that to me was one of the best moves I ever made, because I went in the first day in boot camp. I said, "This is the worst goddamn mistake I've ever made in my life." And 12 weeks later, I thought to myself, I can make myself do anything. I became a self-disciplined United States Marine. So I thought about that, and I thought, well, that was one of the best moves I ever made. And I said, "David, if you really want to do it, I'll help you. Whatever you want to do." So on his 16th birthday, he joined the Sea Org. He went to Tampa with the Flag Land Base, joined the Sea Organization, and within 7 months, he was working with L. Ron Hubbard. He rose right to the top. And when L. Ron Hubbard died, he pushed people out of the way, put his own people in who would listen to him, and he took over the leadership of the church, and he's led the church ever since.
Right, okay. Christ, that's quite a meteoric rise then. So why was he chosen?
He wasn't chosen. He did it himself. And I'll tell you, here's another great little story. Now, he never had a severe asthma attack again as a kid. But for whatever reason, it kicked in again while he was in the Sea Organization. It kicked in so bad, he had to be taken to the emergency room at the hospital. A guy by the name of Paul Grady took him. And when Paul picked him up, he said, Paul, I had an incredible realization. And Paul said, what is that? He said, it's this. Power is not granted. It is assumed. And that's exactly his mantra.
I agree. It's taken, it's not given.
That's exactly right. Yeah. But he's a young guy now. And with that, and by the way, at that point in his life, after working along with L. Ron Hubbard, he was on the point where L. Ron Hubbard's every word or every message that went out to the church had to go through him as a filter. And every communication that went to LRH came through him. So now you could say he was in a position of power right there. You see that?
Yeah.
And just by his own personal charisma, because I'll tell you something, if anything, David is not stupid. He is one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And I'm not saying it's just because of his old man. But I will tell you, I think no matter what he would have done, he would have been very successful at it.
Well, stupid people don't go straight to the top of an organization, no matter what the organization is. So
that's exactly right. But now there's another factor that enters into this, and that is this. There was a British statesman who was, matter of fact, he was a member of Parliament. He was born in 1834 and he lived till the early 1900s. His name was Lord Acton. I don't know if you ever heard that name.
I'm very familiar with the name.
Well, there you go. And it was Lord Acton that said this. And by the way, when I say this, I always thought it was Winston Churchill that said it, but it wasn't at all.
Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
You got it exactly.
Yeah.
You got it exactly. He said the exact thing was power tends to corrupt and absolute power absolutely corrupts absolutely. And by the way, I don't know if you ever read further, but he also said great men are almost always bad men.
I am aware of that. I didn't know that was Acton, though. I didn't know that was Acton. But he's correct as well. He's absolutely correct.
What a brilliant individual, though. I'm telling you. I admire the hell out of him, you know. So now with that, now you have the church going from in the early days. Well, let me just give you a little picture. I have a podcast. The YouTube channel name is Ron Miscavige, and the show's name is Life After Scientology. And I just did the first podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I had a friend on, David Richards, who was actually the commanding officer of the church's organization in Washington, D.C. in 1973. And in those days, they used to sell and deliver counseling or auditing. And they used to deliver every week over 1,000 hours. And they had satisfied customers because what they were delivering was things that you could use in life. It wasn't you turning into a Superman or you're going to become a person who could leave their body as a spiritual being and go read a newspaper in Los Angeles. None of that was promised. But the common everyday handling of your problems, interpersonal relations, communications. And this is what it was in the early days. Now, because of the power corrupting many people in it, that turned into an organization that now promises but can't deliver many of these services that they charge people upwards of $200,000 and $300,000 for. They break people. They go bankrupt. They remortgage their homes and lose everything. And it's turned. I would never, to be honest with you, I'd never say it was a church. But it is a cult, and it's always been a cult. But, you know, I guess there could be a good cult if it's self-help and it offers something that's helpful.
Honestly, from what I know of cults, I don't think any of them are good because of the behaviors they foster. So even if they have good intentions, they end up going bad.
I think you're 100% right. Because some of them do start with good intentions. But then, you know, the easy money, power corrupts them, and it's a different story then. But anyway, David come on and he told about how it was in those days. It is not that way these days. It is not that way. As a matter of fact, one of the policies that they practice is disconnection. Sargon, I lost my entire family except for my son Ronnie and my granddaughter Jenna and her kids.
Now, this is something interesting, because this is a really common feature of cults. It's cutting people off from not only the outside world, but the intimate connections they have with other people in order to isolate them and make them powerless.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And they also character assassinate you. Like the online harassment, I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
They purchased over 500 variations of my name. Over 500. And if you put my name in that way, it'll all take you to a hate site on me. And if you look at the hate site and believe it, well, first of all, you'd have to be nuts to believe it, but nevertheless, it's there. You would think I should have been shot last week, at least, okay?
What's the name of the website? I'll.
Which website?
Is it? I take it your one is The Real Ron Miscavige?
That is my website, The Real Ron Miscavige, yeah.
What's the hate site? I really want to see what they say.
Well,
Ron Miscavige book.
Ron Miscavige book.
Yeah.
Sean just told me. Yeah. You know what? Sargon, I've never looked at one of them. And I'll tell you why. What is the value of it? The other people have told me there's people that come on there and they look like North Korean prisoners giving a talk.
Yeah.
And you know how that looks.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a friend I worked with for over 20 years, an extremely capable writer. And I backed him up. I mean, this guy was not a powerful individual. And I used to have to bolster him up against all the bullshit that we were confronted with every day. Mm. And he comes on and he says, Ron was a personal embarrassment to me. You know, what is he going to say? There's machine guns pointed at his head. Well, not literally, but you know what I'm talking about.
No, I absolutely know what you're talking about. Because, I mean figuratively, like, he's going to walk away from the public appearance back into what I would describe as a den of vipers. People who are going to nip away at his personality and his personal independence, his strength of character, until he is completely compliant with the group.
That I couldn't have said it better. I'll tell you, Sargon.
I've actually
exact description.
I'm really glad it is, actually, because I've a couple of years ago I was worried about social justice being like a cult, and it very much facilitates cult behavior, but in and of itself it's not technically a cult. But I did a lot of reading on it, and they're dangerous, and people get sucked into them without even realizing.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting a little bit of static on my headphones. I hate like hell to tell you this, but my producer is trying to go on. Okay, yeah. Can you hear me, Sargon?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, I can hear you fine now, and the static is knocked off. Would you please mind saying that again? Because for about 10 seconds I didn't hear what you said. Sorry about that.
Sorry, what? Say what about what? What?
The very last thing you said about the cults.
Oh, yeah, I thought social justice had cult-like aspects to it, and so I got a few books and by reputable doctors of psychiatry, and I read through them, and it turns out that social justice as a concept isn't necessarily a cult, but it facilitates cults. It can become the focus of a cult, and probably is many of them, actually.
When you say social justice, what do you mean by that?
I mean the sort of far-left ideology that's focused around diversity.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah. No, look, here's the thing. There's several things that contribute to a cult and being successful. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example of one of them, and that is this. Anybody who has an authoritarian demeanor, or maybe a way of speaking, can influence people. I mean, look, let's not compare Scientology to Hitler, but Hitler was an incredible speaker.
Oh, yeah.
And for some, that he was an authority, all right?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, I'll give you my own little example. I've given this example when I was a little kid. I was in the Boy Scouts, and I wanted to get a merit badge on cooking. Are you familiar with the Boy Scouts? Where you get merit badges?
I was in the Scouts when I was, I don't know, 10 or something.
There you go. All right. So I wanted to get a merit badge on cooking. So we're in the woods, and I'm preparing oatmeal. Mm-hmm. And I'm tasting the oatmeal, and I had gotten some dirt in it, and it was crunchy. And I said to this older kid who was, about 4 or 5 years older than me, he was strong, we listened to everything he said. I mean, we believed everything. His name was Robert Szymanski. I said, Robert, I got dirt in my oatmeal. He said, Ron, you should eat a peck of dirt a year. Now, as a little kid, I thought, maybe he's right. Yeah,
maybe he knows something there. Yeah.
Maybe he knows something and I don't know it. Yeah. Well, he's my authority figure, so I believe them. All right. So that's one of the things. And of course, if you're a charismatic speaker, you can almost hypnotize people with the talk.
Yeah.
You can turn a talk about something that is complete horse manure into something that people are going to believe if you say it with enough certainty.
Yes.
I mean, this happens in cults. And then the other thing is this. There's usually a hook that gets you started in a cult.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I mean by a hook is this.
Well, the asthma, it was a perfect example. It's something innocuous, isn't it? That just brings you in, and then they act normally, but if you look back at it, they seem to have acted weirdly.
Well, I tell you, I think you got a point. I never thought about it that way, but that's a damn good point, Sargon. Yeah. See, when I think about it, the things that you do when you first start in Scientology, like you'll do a course on communication. And it's actually a good course because you learn all the component parts of a precise and effective communication, and you go out and practice this in life, and you're more capable. Now, they have gained your confidence.
Yes.
Get that now.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So now, just take the first three letters, con. Here comes the con. Then the next thing they teach you is that, well, whatever, I'm not going to get into a little treatise on Scientology. But
actually, if you want, I would actually like to know. I mean, I'm not. Okay. We can do that another time. Sorry, do carry on. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Then here's another one.
Yeah.
That if you were to apply affinity, reality, and communication to your dealings with people, they would have a greater understanding of you, and you would have a greater understanding of them. Now, here's what I mean by affinity. Affinity is degree of liking or a degree of not liking. A reality would be something that you held in common with the person. And communication, obviously, is you talking and a person listening, and then them giving you an acknowledgement, and them talking to you, you're listening, you acknowledge them. Now, I'll give you an example of this. Let's say, are you familiar with American football? Or let's say...
Not especially, but I mean, I'm aware of it, but...
Okay, how about the World Cup? Is that what it's called over there?
I actually don't follow soccer either, but I'm aware, and I'm sure the audience will be. So carry on, please. Okay,
so let's say, God, I can't think of the name of the soccer team over there.
Arsenal.
But you're, what'd you say?
Arsenal or Manchester?
Arsenal. Okay, let's say Manchester, right?
Yeah.
So now you meet somebody, and all of a sudden you discover you're both Manchester fans. Well, immediately you have a common reality, and that then leads to you're wanting maybe to talk to the guy a little bit more about this, and you start talking about who's the striker and various things about it. And because of that, you could say you like him a little better, which is your affinity for him goes up. And you might say later on, I understand that guy. You see how that works?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're striking up a friendship.
Yeah, exactly. But it's codified so that you have this little triangle which says affinity, reality, communication equals understanding. So now they're gaining your confidence. Now these are the hooks. When I say they're the hooks, there legitimately is at the bottom of the bridge. And by the way, the whole experience in Scientology is called the bridge to total freedom.
Right.
That's what they call it. So these are the beginning things that you do. Now, once that's established, somewhere along that way, you may be introduced to a concept that you think to yourself, man, I don't know if I agree with that. That sounds a little bit odd, but, well, you know what? Everything they said so far to me is true. I'll just accept it. And at that point, you're really hooked.
Yeah.
Because then...
Just to ask, is it about your own self-doubt there at that point?
Yes, your own self-doubt will be vanquished by the fact that there's been datums that you've used in life that were successful that will then vanquish your self-doubts, and you'll think to yourself, well, everything they've said to me so far has been true. I'm going to accept this.
Yes.
And once you hit that, then you go on accepting things without any personal observation of trying it out to see if it's true or not. You see how that works?
Yep.
Now, I don't think it's unique to Scientology. I think this is the way cults operate.
It is. That's exactly how Arthur Diekman describes it. He describes, they have 4 characteristics. Let me see if I can remember them off the top of my head. So you've got dependence on a leader, devaluation of outsiders, compliance with the group, and there was one other thing that I can't remember off the top of my head, I think. But basically, you're describing exactly what he was describing.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, those 3, yeah.
He used an example of a cult called Life Force, which was kind of like a corporate cult in the same vein as Scientology, as in they promised self-help and what you call auditing, they called processing and things like this. And it was just basically long, quote-unquote, counselling sessions where they'd effectively interrogate one another. And it was kind of the way of, I don't want to say hypnotizing, but it was a way of getting people in the right mindset to accept whatever the propositions was.
Do you know that in England, instead of calling counseling auditing, they used to call it processing in Scientology? Isn't that wild?
It doesn't surprise me at all, actually, now that you say it. But,
wow.
That's the thing. It's a similar pattern for a lot of these things, isn't it? I mean, Diekman described it as a group of behaviors that once you put them all together, creates a really totalitarian, controlling, oppressive environment.
And it is that. It is that. There's no two ways about it. Like, you don't question anything that L. Ron Hubbard would say. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you.
Oh, avoidance of dissent. I think that was the last thing I left out. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, anything he said. As a matter of fact, there's an entire organization where they have everything that he ever said, that he ever wrote, even little notes or policy letters or technical bulletins or professional auditor bulletins. Everything is all categorized. Mm-hmm. And if you have a thought on something, you would normally say, I wonder what Ron said about this, and look it up. Really? And you would just follow what he said as the last word.
As if he was a prophet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's astonishing, but
yeah.
Listen, I was in it. I was involved for 42 years, my friend.
Oh, I believe you. No. This is the thing. Everything you're saying, I'm listening to what you're saying and critically analysing it as you say it, obviously. And everything you're saying is completely in line with everything I've read about cults. And like I said, I went out of my way to read up on them quite extensively because, in fact, I actually have the book on my windowsill. I've just noticed this at the bottom of my reading pile. But I actually have the book on my. It's called The Wrong Way Home, and it's really good. Let me just grab it, and I'll give you the. That's me knocking things over. But yeah, so he's got these four behaviours, and they're absolutely fascinating.
But just give me the full name of the book and the author, if you don't mind. I'm going to write this down right now.
Yeah. He's Dr. Arthur Diekman, Deikman. DEI, sorry.
DEI?
Yeah, Deikman. And the book is called The Wrong Way Home.
The Wrong Way Home. Okay, good.
And so the four factors are compliance with the group, dependence on the leader, devaluation of the outsider, and avoidance of dissent.
Wow, this is really interesting. I'll tell you, man, it is the nail on the head.
Yeah, it's exactly that, right?
Yeah, because I'll give me an example. In Scientology, non-Scientologists are called WOGs.
I was going to ask you what the outsider's name was.
Yep, WOGs.
WOGs?
WOGs, yeah. As a matter of fact, that's a takeoff on a term. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, when I was in the Marine Corps, I heard that. And this, I hate to say it, but it was a deprecating term against Orientals. And the story is that one time, one of the Orientals said, I know you call us WOGs. What does that mean? And the Marine said, Worthy Oriental Gentleman, which is a bullshit story. It isn't at all women.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was under the impression that was an ethnic slur.
It is. But the thing is, that's what Scientology refers to people who are not in, or they refer to them as raw meat. Right. That means somebody who doesn't know anything about Scientology. Yeah. And they're looked down upon. And as a Scientologist, you develop an air of arrogance it's astonishing. But listen, some of these people are, not some, most people who are in it are pretty bright people.
Mm-hmm.
And they get transformed into this person who won't talk about what went on in their auditing session. That's forbidden. You can't talk about anything that you've analyzed about yourself at all.
Mm-hmm.
You will just accept if a person speaks up about Scientology and they become a critic of them, you will accept being disconnected from them, just like that. I mean, when I got out, I was speaking to both my daughters for a little bit. This is in 2012. And then Lori stopped talking to me, and then Denise still spoke to me for a while, but then she disconnected from me. And if she didn't, here's the penalty. My daughter Denise has a daughter who's in the Sea Organization.
Mm-hmm.
And if Denise spoke to me, Tara would never speak to her mother again. Lori, who worked for a Scientology employer, if they found out that she spoke to me, she would lose her job that day.
My God, I mean, this is exactly what Dieckmann described life force as doing, and literally, like they would try. I mean, he has one example of them trying to separate a mother from her son, and that was the punishment if she stepped out of line or whatever it was she was supposed to do. The punishment that they would effectively break her contact with her teenage son. It's like, wow, that is such an evil thing to threaten someone with.
Oh, listen, why do you think I'm doing this? Why do you think I have my blog, my website, and I talk about it? This, I feel, a duty. I'm a musician. I play for pleasure, okay?
Yeah.
This, what I'm doing, I feel I have a duty to do it. I just can't say, oh, well, that's the way it is. Hey, I'm not going to use any bad words, but...
Oh, no, I know what you mean.
Don't try to tramp on me and think I'm going to lay there, buddy.
Yeah, and especially after being, I guess, trapped in it for such a long time. I mean, I feel like I've got a duty to speak out against the kind of cult-like attitude of the far left at the moment, and that's why I do what I do. I completely understand why. I mean, none of my well, actually, my sister is a radical feminist, but she's not nuts. But I can completely understand if I have family members trapped in this kind of nonsense, I would feel exactly as you feel. I think. I mean, I feel like I'm halfway there already. So I understand what you mean when you say you've got a duty to do this. I totally relate.
Well, I can tell you. Do I want to get into it further? I guess I do. Look. I'll tell you how bad this is. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a guy by the name of Marc Headley. Right, he's a personal friend of mine. Wait a minute. My producer has to handle something.
Yeah, no problem.
Are we on back again? Are you there, Sargon?
I am here, yeah.
Okay, yeah. The thing develops static. I don't know what the hell it is, but Sean has to handle it as we're on the fly here.
Right.
Marc Headley, his mother disconnected from him, and she said, if I don't disconnect you, it's going to affect every man, woman, and child on this planet. It's astonishing.
That is a staggering thing to say.
It is staggering, yet I will tell you, they have such a hold on you that you will go along with anything. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you one thing that's happening is that the population of the Scientology group is growing less and less and less all the time, and that is a fact.
Well,
they had probably 100,000 in the early 90s. Right now, the estimate by people who know about stuff like this is that it's down around 20,000 people, maybe.
Right. Well, that's good.
That is good. So that would be one thing that, people, well, like myself, like Leah Remini, who had a show over here, and Scientology, The Aftermath, that helped a lot of people just leave.
Okay, so I've got a question then, because you said that a lot of people involved in it are very smart people, and I completely believe that. Because what the impression I got from what I read was not that I don't even know if stupid or sort of psychopathic people can even be in cults, because people in cults seem to be very empathetic and very weak of character.
You say people are weak of character who are in cults?
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that.
No?
Because I'll tell you why. one of the things that keeps people in the cult is they think that the technology of L. Ron Hubbard is going to help every man and woman and child on this planet.
Right.
They actually think that way because, well, you're led to feel that way, and you have all these events where these statistics come out where, and of course they're against psychiatry completely and utterly because of the vicious drugs they give people.
Yeah.
And that's like a common enemy. If you ever want to rally a bunch of Scientologists, bring up psychiatry, and they'll back up anything. They'll give money, you name it, okay?
Yeah.
And yeah, they think, and I felt this way. I hate to admit it, but I have to eat crow or else I would have never been able to leave. Matter of fact, I'll tell you, you're familiar with the American writer Mark Twain, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you what he said, and this is so true. It hit me between the eyes when I read it. It's easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled.
Yes.
You can't. You have to look in the mirror one day and say, you know what? Jesus, I've been conned. I've been screwed. Unless you do that, with all honesty, you'll never leave. You'll say, well, look, it's only those critics who are saying that about us, and they're defrocked apostates, and they're critical, and we should have gotten rid of them a long time ago. Matter of fact, like with me, some of the things that are said are, well, he was no good on post. He's a failed musician. He's at best a third trumpet player.
Denigration
blah, blah, blah.
of an apostate.
Denigration of me to the nth degree. Yeah, listen to this. I'm a failed musician. I did an album, and now it's called Ron Miscavige Timeless. You can hear it to see if I sound like a failed musician. And BBC asked me to play on the air. Well, they must be completely fucking stupid. Excuse my expression there. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, I'm just looking at the statement that they have as ronmiscavigebook.com, and the statement is, I mean, to call it uncharitable would be a nice thing for me to say. To call this, I mean, in Britain, I would sue over this, but I understand that your libel laws are a lot more loose than ours are.
They're very lenient over here.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, this is just a character attack.
Yeah, it is. And here's the thing. On my 70th birthday, David and my two daughters chipped in and bought me a new car. On my 70th birthday. On my 75th birthday, my daughter sent me 75 gifts. So all of a sudden, after being their father and being the family head for over 40 years, they realized, wait a minute, that guy's no goddamn good. We should have realized this a long time ago.
Yeah.
Who believes this? Well, I'll tell you who does. The people in the church.
Yes.
And they want to keep feeding it to them, so they'll keep donating money and getting nothing for their money.
Yeah.
That's why they do this.
I mean, if as someone outside of Scientology and who doesn't really know a huge amount about it, Scientology has a bad enough reputation that if someone who is a Scientologist tries to tell me about the bad character of someone else, I already know that this is a lie.
Oh, there you go.
The reason, and maybe that's just me, but I honestly think the public at large would probably be wary of what's being said there anyway. I mean, it didn't work, did it? I'm having you on and not someone from the Church of Scientology on. So,
well, listen, buddy, I offered when I did 2020, I said to Dan Harris, I said, hey, listen, you want to accuse me of these things. What I want you to do is get a person on the air with me, because I'm on national television on a mic, and you know who I am. I'm Ron Miscavige. I'm fronting up to anything you want to say. Have them stand in front of me and accuse me of the things that they say about me.
Yeah.
You'll never get a taker, and I'll tell you why you won't. Nobody alive will be able to remember all the lies they've made up. It's just impossible. It's just a bullshit story,
Yeah, well, it's institutionalized, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah.
You've got, I mean, like every time, because the thing is the compliance with the group and avoidance of dissent are some of the most dangerous aspects of any group work at all. And it can turn any group into a cult if you start falling into these patterns. So, like, if you're not allowed to show your dissent and you have to go along with everything everyone else does, then, I mean, that's got to be emotionally taxing. And so it's got, I guess, weakness of character. Maybe I was being uncharitable when I said that, but maybe it's just how it came across when I was reading it. Because it struck me as people who, I guess, I figured, I mean, from my reading of it, I thought it was people who had a subconscious kind of, maybe not desire, but some kind of longing to be dependent on other people. And I'm not the sort of person who wants to be dependent on other people,
Right,
so
right.
maybe I misread that a bit too harshly. But
You know
from
what?
from the way you were saying it, it makes it sound like they're normal people who don't want that, but they end up finding themselves slowly sucked into a situation where they have no choice, and like, I guess some sort of cognitive dissonance takes over and makes you want to believe that you're in the right still.
Well, I'll tell you something. I think you hit the nail on the head, buddy. I swear to God,
Oh no,
because
thank you.
that's a good analysis.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. It's all well and good book learning, but there's no substitute from being able to talk to someone about it who's directly
Yeah.
been through it. You know.
Well, no, I mean, here I'll say it in my own words now. You go in as a strong individual because, first of all, you feel that you've been helped, and then your desire to help your fellow man kicks in. And you think to yourself, now, if everybody on this planet could be this way, man, maybe we could talk things out. Maybe we wouldn't have wars. Maybe, the able people would be able to prosper, blah, 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 all these things. That gets you in. But then the further you get in and you are conned with the things that do work, and now you're accepting things that you have doubts with, but you say, I'll believe it because everything they said so far. Now, once you get into the group think, then you believe everything, and then you'll listen to all these things, and you look like a weak person. But until you say to yourself, I've been screwed, I've been conned, this is not right, you can't get out of that. And you'll go along, you turn into a goddamn sheep.
You know what's really interesting about this is that I've been reading a lot of evolutionary psychology recently, and Jonathan Haidt points out that basically the mind is like an elephant with a rider, and the rider is your rational mind. It's the where you're literally looking at yourself thinking, I need to be honest that I've been conned. But the elephant is your emotional, the passions, the part of you that just reacts. And most people's decisions are instinctual. They don't think about them really, but they rationalize them after the fact. And you really have to sit down in a completely neutral or even welcoming environment and make the elephant feel like it's safe before you can have a rational conversation that the elephant of the emotions doesn't just override. And this is why, like, it's easier to fool someone than persuade them they've been fooled. No one likes to think that they're a fool. They're gonna find all kinds of post hoc defenses and rationalizations for what they've done. And I bet it's really like obvious when you're in an environment like that.
Well, no, I'll tell you, you're talking truth here, because this is you get to the point. Like, one of the things that happens is that some of the meetings we would be just ripped apart as individuals and told how bad we were. The group was the worst that ever existed. And you develop a defense type of mechanism against this, where you actually don't care what happens and you don't care what is said. And maybe that has some value to it, but I'll tell you, that this is what happens. You become kind of emotionalist, and you go to these meetings where you're getting ripped apart, and if you start taking it personally, you're at the depths of your feelings, at the lowest point of your feelings.
Absolutely. I tell you, sorry, this is just echoing this life force thing so much, where there was an account of there was a man and a woman, I can't remember the woman's name, but they would have these group sessions where literally everyone in the group would just say bad things to her, about her, and they would just be saying it to her face just to break down her self-esteem.
Wow, this is true. And I'll tell you the other thing, to add to this, you justify how you feel. Like most Scientologists who are in the cult, who are the Kool-Aid drinkers, that we refer to them as, will justify everything, why they'll have to go to these meetings and donate to a new building. And it's only because of people outside the cult that are trying to do them in that's this way. Everything about it is correct. Everything is wonderful. But they've justified why they feel this way. It's justified thought and just a justified beingness, why they're this way even,
No, absolutely. It has to as well, because It focuses around the leader being right in all things and everyone believing that the leader is always right in all things. And if the leader, because the second the leader isn't right about one thing, then it's cast doubt on everything else that's been said.
Yeah, that's the crack in the wall. And there's an old story about, I forget the old story now, but the crack in a temple would bring it down. Just one little crack would start, and that's it. The whole temple would come down.
Yeah, but that's the attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the attitude.
Yeah.
At any rate, this is their modus operandi is this. They have literally billions of dollars in reserves. The most they spend the money on is attacking their critics. Mm-hmm. Like, as an example, if you were to leave, they would take your auditing or your processing sessions, as we spoke about earlier, calling it that, and they would cull through that and see some discreditable thing that you confessed that you thought you're going to get relief from this, and they'll publicize it. Yep. They don't care. Yep. And to sue them, well, I'll tell you this. You'd have to be out of your mind if you want to sue them, because all they have is hot and cold running attorneys and endless supply of money. And if you were to live 3 more lifetimes from now, it may never go to court. And it may never go to trial because they can stave it off. There are some brave people that are doing it, and one guy is making some headway, but he's gone for years now, and it's moving. Well, maybe the way a sloth would move. I don't know if you ever saw a sloth.
I'm actually involved in a court case in the US at the moment. I know how slow it is. I'm being sued by an angry SJW because I used clips of her video and she wants to try and extract some money from me.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's entirely political. She says it in the first paragraph of her bloody statement, which I don't think is going to help her case, but I'm not going to go into it. Sorry. Yeah, I know what it's like. I know it's slow.
Well, so if you want to get some relief, I'll tell you, people should just walk away and just forget about it. Just start a new life. Look, I just turned 82 in January 19th. Mm-hmm. Of course, I tell people I don't look a day over 81, which is wonderful. And I'll never stop talking. This is what I intend to do. That's why I got the blog, and I have a show. It's called Life After Scientology. And, if anybody would like to support my efforts and activities, you can go to my Patreon page at Ron Miscavige. That helps me. But,
I'll leave a link to your podcast in the description of this video. So if people are interested in learning more about this, and to be honest with you, I really would recommend that people do, because honestly, these behaviors are easy to slip into because they happen gradually. They slowly accumulate until you're doing something terrible to someone else, and you don't even really want to do that thing, and you don't really know why.
Yeah. No, you're right, buddy. I'll tell you, it's a cult that's disguised as a religion operating as a business. I mean, that's the bottom line to the whole thing they have right now. And it's so corrupt. It isn't a matter of, go on, say something.
Just saying Joe Rogan thing. Go ahead.
Okay, we were getting static a minute. Is this still staticky? Could you say something?
Hi, can you hear me?
Sorry,
You're good. You're good.
You good?
You're good.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you again now.
Great, okay.
Whatever it is, it's a technical thing. Sorry about that. We didn't know it'd be this way. I'm sure Sean would have fixed it before we ever started the show. Now, I kind of lost train of the last thing. Oh, yeah. Well, I mentioned about the various things. And the other thing is this. The album that I did, I think it'd be a nice treat. If anybody wants to hear what I did in 1974 that led BBC to wanting me to play on the air, and you can just download it. It's as an MP3.
Yeah.
See what the heck I was thinking about, and you can hear me playing trumpet, and you judge for yourself if I'm a failed musician. They call it, Meanwhile, I'm doing gigs every week.
Yeah.
People call me,
Yeah. Honestly, I can tell you now, don't take any of their character attacks personally. No. None of them are true. I already know none of them are true because they're the ones saying them. It's entirely their interest to denigrate you. I get this from the far left all the time because I'm like a centre left guy, and I'm not happy with the way that the left was basically operating. And I started speaking out about it, and suddenly I'm the worst person in the world. I mean, you can Google my name, and you will find articles in mainstream media outlets calling me a fascist, part of an ethno-nationalist group, a neo-Nazi, white supremacist, all this sort of stuff. And it's just
My
like,
God.
I'm a liberal. I'm an English liberal. I'm a free marketeer. I'm an individual rights guy. And yet they will call me a Nazi. And it's just like, okay, well, at least I know I'm not.
Well, I'll tell you, most people like that, as far as I'm concerned, they're cardboard replicas of life.
Yeah.
They don't do anything. All they know how to do is criticize, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've run across them my whole life. And I say, the hell with them.
So tell me how you got out. Tell me how you got out. Because we're coming on the hour, so I don't want to not get this story.
Okay. Here's how we got out. First of all, me being the father of the chairman of the board, you would think that I had certain perks and everything. And, because this is old man, he's going to be treated better. And listen, nothing could be further from the truth. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of times people would take out on me things that they didn't have the balls to confront Dave with and go after him. Let's start out to begin with. But one perk I did have was this. One Christmas, David gave me a Kindle. Are you familiar with the Kindle?
I am, yeah. Yep.
Okay. So he gave me this Kindle, and the security guards were doing their damnedest to get me to give it to them. And I said, what is this? I mean, Dave gave me this. It's a gift. And they'd back off. At least I could back them off with that. And one of the things he put on that Kindle was all of L. Ron Hubbard's fiction works. So, and I did like his fiction. Old Doc Methuselah was one of my favorites.
I actually haven't read any of it, but I have heard he's a good sci-fi author.
He is a good sci-fi writer. But anyway, so I have this Kindle, and they want to get this off of me, and I can't figure out why. Now, if you're familiar with the Kindle, if you're reading something and a word comes up that you don't understand, you can highlight that word, and then there's a little switch. This is the old Kindle, and it was a mechanical switch that would go to the right, to the left, up, down, or you could press in. Mm-hmm. And I picked a word one day. I was reading something, and I went to and if you pressed it to the right, it would say go to dictionary. I accidentally held a little lever to the right a little bit too long. It said dictionary, and then it said Google, and I was on the internet with no filter.
Right, that's very interesting, because I let me assume then from knowing that you were never allowed unsupervised and unfiltered internet access.
Your assumption is 100% correct. Everything we did on the internet was filtered. You could only buy things. As a matter of fact, one of the things about being on staff where I was is that you couldn't leave the base to go to a store to shop.
Really?
You couldn't write a letter that they wouldn't check out before it was sent, and if there was something wrong in it, you had to rewrite the letter. You couldn't make a telephone call without somebody listening in on an extension.
So they literally ran it like Nazi Germany.
Yes. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not comparing them to Nazi Germany because they don't, throw people in ovens and stuff like that.
They don't kill people, but that is the quintessential description of a totalitarian regime. You're not allowed access to the outside world without our say-so. You can't leave the compound or leave the nation. It's all facets of what the Nazis did.
Oh, they'll deny this too. They say, Ron could have left anytime. That's bullshit, man.
Of course they do.
I would have been seized and I would have been kept there till now. But anyway, so I have this Kindle and I pressed it and I was on Google. So I start looking up various things about Scientology, about L. Ron Hubbard. And I'll be honest with you, I personally, many, many years before this happened, knew that there was something wrong in Denmark. They just, and I used to say to my wife, Becky, this is something wrong. I think we should leave. But we couldn't walk out because if you say you want to leave, then you're going to be interrogated for years and you're not allowed to leave. So I saw things, and one of the things I saw was this, that there was a woman on the base. Her name was Annie Tidman. Now, her and her husband were the last two people to be with L. Ron Hubbard before he died. And Annie was living on the base where I was, which is in Hemet, California, and she developed lung cancer. So she had to go to Los Angeles for treatment, and there's a girl that went with her as her personal handler, or in other words, it would be like your service facility or somebody who would take care of you, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So every once in a while, I would ask our medical liaison officer, or MLO we call it, which is a nurse. How is Annie doing? And Martina would say, oh, she's doing great, Ronnie. Yeah, she's doing real good. Yeah, really nice. I'm on the Kindle looking at Google. I find out that Annie Tidman died 6 months earlier. And nobody was told this. And as a matter of fact, shortly after I saw that, there were two girls, women, who were walking around and they were collecting donations for her birthday. And Deirdre said, Ronnie, we're taking up a collection. It's going to be Annie's birthday. Do you want to contribute? It was everything I could do just to say, look, you're either part of this scam or you're just stupid like me. Yeah. And all I said was, okay, no, I'm going to pass this time. That was the linchpin that came out, and now I was sold. My wife, Becky, many times when I said we got to leave, she'd listen, it's going to get better, it's going to get better. And my statement to her was this, look, if there's a boulder running down the mountain, do you think that boulder is going to stop, reverse, and go up the mountain? Becky, God damn it, this is a bad scene. It's going to get worse. And of course, it did get worse. But when that happened, I told Becky, I said, look, we got to get out of here. Now, we planned our escape for 6 months. You remember me saying earlier when on my 75th birthday, my daughter sent me 75 gifts? Mm-hmm. Right? Okay, so now, this was part of our plan. I didn't want to leave all of my worldly possessions there because all I could escape with was my car, and I could fill it up. I had that Ford station wagon that they bought me. This is the one they chipped and bought me. So what we did is Becky's mother's birthday was coming up. So we decided we're going to send her so many gifts. Now, it would all have to go through security, but since I got 70 gifts, they would think I was reciprocating with somebody in Becky's family, and they let everything go. Right. Things like a car detailing kit. Now, what the hell is she going to do with the detail? But they let it go because they saw me doing this. So that's how we got a lot of our possessions that we didn't want to leave behind. And this is over a 6 month period. And another thing I used to do
was It's like a jailbreak. I can't believe you can't just carry your... well, I can completely believe you can't just carry your things out. But like...
Listen, there's more to the story. It's hard to believe, but this actually happened.
No, I do believe it. That's the thing. Yeah. I do. Carry on, please.
Now, on Sunday morning, which was the time of the week between 9:30 and noon, you would clean your apartment. Well, it was like a room. It wasn't really an apartment. And that's what people were expected to do. So in the morning, what I would do is drive. The base was divided into a southern part and a northern part. And there was 2 security gates. The main one was where the guards were. And then about 200 yards down the road, there was one where there was a camera, and you pressed a button, they'd see who it was, and then they'd either let you go through or question you. So every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, I would go there, press the button, go across to the northern side, which was where the music studio was, and there was a refrigerator there where I would keep things like maybe Parmesan cheese or some sharp cheddar cheese, maybe Italian salami. And I'd come back and I'd go through the other gate where the guards were, and I would always give them some treats. So basically, I was feeding the watchdogs. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. So they were conditioned into seeing me on a regular basis, go across, 9 o'clock in the morning, that was it. So now,
I would never have thought of that. That's brilliant.
I had to think about it, or
I bet. I mean, maybe if I was in that position, I'd consider it. But like,
of course you would. Yeah. Now here it is. Sunday, March 25th was a Sunday. I had a little notebook that I put down all the things we were taking and the things we were leaving, and I must have checked it 50 times. We finally go out to the car. I get in the car, and the car is filled to the top with clothes, my trumpets, cornets, my extra genies, which is an apparatus I've used, that I work out with, and all kinds of stuff that we figured we'd put in the car. So we're driving down to that gate where there's no security guards, and we're going past the mess hall, and I see the chase car that's there. Now, the chase car is a car that the guards would have in case somebody tries to escape. They chase them. And on Sunday morning, there's only 2 security guards on watch. One is in the booth, and the other one is the chase. Mm-hmm. and Sal had a chase car, and he was having breakfast in the mess hall.
Mm-hmm.
Jurgen was on the booth. So I'm driving down to this remote gate, which is 200 yards down the road, and I'm telling you, I pull up, press the button. He's so used to me going across to get these goodies, doesn't even say anything, hits the button, and the gate opens. I pull out slowly, and I said to Becky, we're turning left. I turned left and put my foot to the floor. I'm up 80 miles an hour. When I got to, there's a road that goes to the right, that goes straight, and that goes left.
Yeah.
And there's a decision that Sal would have to make, because Jurgen would be on it and saying, Ronnie, where the hell are you going? Because I had a Nextel, but I left it behind.
Yeah.
And he'd say, Ronnie, and then he'd say, Sal, get up here pronto. By the time Sal left the mess hall, got in the car, and drove up, I know I would be at least at that point if I jammed it. So if I thought how he would think, if I went to the right, that's a Route 10 that goes into LA, straight would be Route 60, and if you go left, you go into town. He would never think I turned left. So I got down there, turned left, we hit the stoplight, I turned right, I'm in the boondocks, and we're free. That's how the escape was done.
I bet you had the worst case of butterflies driving up to that gate.
When I left that gate, that instant, I felt like an entire 2 tons of coal were lifted off me. It was a physical phenomenon that is undescribable. And I thought at that moment, good Lord, I'm free.
I totally understand. I mean, this is exactly the sort of thing they're writing about. Like, when they would even, like, just doing this, I mean, it sounds like, it sounds to an outsider ridiculous. You know, you're like nervous and gripping the wheel or whatever as you're driving up to the gate, whatever it is. And just like, you know, you don't think it's going to work. And all you're doing is leaving somewhere that you are legally free to leave. But from the inside, it's a mindset, you know, and I totally know what you mean, because the description that I got was like you felt surrounded all the time.
Yep.
And so no matter where you went, you had like an enemy informant. And every single one of these, at any time, if you didn't do what you were supposed to do, that meant you were surrounded by enemies, like people actively trying to hurt you. And so that keeps you in line. And so, yeah, as soon as you just get away from their company, then, I could totally empathize with the idea of this giant waste just being, you know, suddenly they're not around you. They're not telling you you're bad. They're not restricting your freedom of movement. You're restricting your thoughts, you know. So I could totally see it. I genuinely can. Well,
that was the escape. And the thing is, when you're there, and if any staff member would have caught you, they would have tried to stop you from leaving. But guess what? They think they're doing it for your own good.
Yeah.
It is just so ludicrous. And I'll tell you, when we left that, and I felt, Jesus Christ, I'm free. I'm a free man again. We drove across the United States, and we paid for everything with cash. I paid for my petrol with cash. The food. We had two lodgings, 2 nights. We went to a motel. Do you know why I paid cash?
Because you didn't have a card.
No, I had a credit card.
Oh, did you? Right.
But if I used it, they would trace it, and they'd fly somebody out there and get me.
Yeah. Like you're literally on the run.
Yep, I'm literally on the run. And we finally got to Whitewater, Wisconsin, and then about 2 weeks later, 2 people come out and try to get me to go back. And they, I just said to them, look, you're out of your mind. I mean, there's just no way I'm coming back to that.
In the US, I probably would have answered the door armed. I'm not kidding. I after reading through all of this stuff, I was just like, holy cow, there is nothing that I want to be involved in less than a cult. Because it's a terrible form of oppression. And it's because it warps your perception of reality.
To boot, they're a religion. They get tax-free deductions. How do you like that?
Well, that's how they end up with huge amounts of money in the bank, isn't it?
Exactly right. And then they send 2 private investigators out to follow me, paying them $10,000 a week. So
just to wrap this all up then, I mean, you must be having a new lease on life at this point.
I'm totally having a new lease on life. I'm enjoying my life. I enjoy what I do, and be honest with you, I enjoy talking out, because I'm talking for many people who just wouldn't have. I don't know what you say. I have courage. I'll tell you what it is more than anything. I can't walk away from an injustice and say, oh, that's the way it is. Maybe that's why I joined the Marines. I don't know. You know, I tell people, in order to join the Marines, you got to be a little bit nuts, and that really is true. You know, but you develop an attitude. You're just not going to let yourself get walked on. And many times you have to stand up for other people who won't do it for themselves. And that's the reason. That's the reason I do this. I'll be honest with you.
I think that's very noble, and I think that there are a lot of people who wouldn't do that because it would be easier for them. I mean, they wouldn't have the potential to be sued at any point or having hit pieces written on them or anything like that. It would just be easier for them to keep their heads down and just get on with things, even if he had managed to escape themselves. So that's honestly, it's genuinely. When you were telling the story of driving up to the gate, I was like white knuckling it. I was like, yeah, I mean, I knew you were going to escape, but it was I knew what because of all the stuff I'd read about it, I was just like, oh my god, I know exactly how this goes. I hope he gets out. Obviously you do.
Oh,
but
and out that car that I have, that it's a Ford, but it has a double overhead cam. I don't know if you know anything about engines, but it's a sleeper. Boy, when you trump on that picks up. It's like a little sports car. It's picking them up and putting them down, you know. And that was a moment. But anyway, listen. Sargon, I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh,
and
thank you.
It's very nice of you. It's very nice of you.
Oh, not a problem at all. Sean recommended you because of the fact that you'd been such an integral part of the Church of Scientology, and that you wanted to. And I mean, when he said it, I was like, well, that's great because I actually happen to know something about the subject, but not in a direct way to Scientology. So it was one of those things. It's like this. I knew this would turn out to be a great conversation. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Okay, my friend.
All right. Well, take care, Ron, and I'm sure I'll see you at some point. I mean, if you're with the MythCon guys, I'll be out there this year.
Well, I was there last year. I don't know if you saw me, but I gave a half an hour talk, which you can't tell the story in a half an hour, but I was, and you know.
Well, okay. Well, if you're there this year, then we'll definitely go and get a drink.
Absolutely, you know. And what do you drink?
I like brandy actually, because I'm a bit of a wuss.
You're joking. Do you know that brandy in the United States, in the state of Wisconsin, the Wisconsinites drink more brandy than the entire rest of the United States put together?
I did not know that. Okay, well, I hope they've got some good brandy then.
I prefer it over any other one. You know, not that I'm a...
No, I don't drink much myself, but if I do, I like brandy, yeah.
You know, court for breakfast and stuff like that.
Well,
I'm joking, please.
I know.
Although, I'll tell you, the church will probably get that, edit out everything else, and say, look, Ron Miscavige is an alcoholic. He drinks a quart of brandy every day. That's bullshit.
That is literally what the far left does to me. They will take me, just anything that I've said, out of context, you know, to make it look like I'm being a terrible person. It's like, for the love of God, you know, these people are just shameless and ruthless. It's they are. And it's exactly...
let's just stick with the word worthless. I think that's the truth of all of these people.
Yes.
Their worth to life is nothing except they occupy space. Okay, everybody deserves to live, you know.
It's even worse than that, right? I think they actually might be a net negative, because someone who's got worth doesn't need to try and control someone else. But if you've got no worth at all, and in fact you might be a drag, you're going to need to control a bunch of people to get billions of dollars.
That's the true statement, my friend. Yeah. It's funny too, you know.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, like,
it is true.
These people are parasites. That's the thing. I don't like to use the term, but it's like that is what they do, though. You know.
Yeah, and there's no useful product ending up for their activities.
Yes.
Like, you know, I mean, you do something in life. I'm a musician. You know, at the end of my performances, there's enjoyment that people have had. That's a bit of a product, you know?
Exactly. You're actually creating something that didn't exist previously. Whereas what are they contributing?
Nothing. And I'll tell you, I should do a little commercial again on the album I did, because this was a real pleasure that we did. And if you have me on again, I can give you a little backstory on it, which is very interesting, because it was the first time I ran into anybody who was connected with a church as an executive, and I should have seen the handwriting on the wall. But on that's available on Amazon. You can get it. It's called Ron Miscavige Timeless. I want to get that commercial, and I hope you don't mind.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, I bet that is interesting to hear about all the corruption that's going on with the officials themselves.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if we do talk again, if we have another podcast or something again, I would definitely be happy to go through it, because it's. I mean, I'm happy to just hear the stories and events of what happened, because the sort of like the day-to-day life is something that I think people forget is part of maintaining the control, like the ritual of the daily life.
Exactly. No, I agree. And listen, I didn't read about this in a book. I lived it.
Yeah.
You know, I was involved with the church for 42 years. I was on staff for 26 and a half years. So I walked the walk. I know what the hell went on. I was there. I saw it. You know, this is direct observation, you know?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, we definitely will talk again. We'll do another one of these.
Okay, my friend.
Take care of yourself, Ron. Thanks again.
And thank you, Sharpen. Bye-bye now.
Cheers.
Sargon, is it okay if I pop in?
Oh, yeah, sure, man. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just want to say, okay, thank you, Sargon, so much. Is this going to be on the Thinkery?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll grab the link and I'll make sure I get it up on Ron's website and all that. And yeah, awesome. I think it was a great conversation. And yeah, again, thanks for doing it. And
No problem.
so we are working on the marketing for MythCon this weekend. We should have it up in a couple of weeks. What do you think? Do you think people are going to go nuts or what?
I think it'll be interesting. I haven't told anyone what I'm doing, or if I have, I've accidentally said so.
Oh yeah. No, it's fine. It's just like, you know, the Karen Gar's Karen Strawn thing. I think is going to be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, you and Richard, that's going to be the highlight.
Yeah. No, for me, Karen Strawn's going to be the highlight. She was the lady who first kind of pulled me out of the Matrix. So if I get to meet her, yeah, I owe her a beer. At the very
Awesome.
least.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's fantastic. And the Marissa Janae Johnson, she was the Black Lives Matter. She was never really with Black Lives Matter, but she was the activist that shut down Bernie Sanders at a rally.
Really?
Do you remember that?
Is that the Phoenix rally?
I think it's Philadelphia.
It's Philadelphia. No. Okay, yeah, Philadelphia. Yeah.
Maybe it was. Yeah, it was. I think.
Oh
it was
no! I think it was Philadelphia. I think I'm the one who's making the mistake. Yeah, no. It was famous.
Yeah, where he stood aside and they just went up there and chanted and just kind of went off for like, I don't know, 20 minutes or whatever.
We are being reasonable. Yes, you're being incredibly reasonable. Look at you.
Yeah, so that's going to be, I think that one's going to be awesome. And the whole thing. And Chris Ray-Gun is kind of on the fence right now. Hopefully we get him. It doesn't sound like Bering is going to do it. I haven't had any communications, but I was hoping.
I'll send him another message. I don't know what's happening, so I'm not going to speak on his behalf.
Yeah, I don't want to pressure him or anything. So, I mean, I know Jeremy, the quartering Jeremy's been talking to him a little bit too. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I think he's...
I'm just going to take a moment to pressure Chris Ray-Gun, though. He should definitely do it. Stop being a cuck.
That would be awesome. If you could, that'd be fantastic.
I'm just kidding.
No, Claire Lehman from the Q-Life magazine is going to be on that panel too, so that should be interesting. It's the first time that she's done anything like this. And Q-Light's a great magazine, kind of really centrist and really cool. It's out of Australia, so...
Quillette is one of the few publications I actually trust to have a thoughtful dialogue on something.
Yes. Yeah, so we want to give her a platform, and start getting her word out there. But again, Sargon, thank you for this. I'll keep in touch with all the things that are coming up, and we're gonna be off to the races pretty soon here. So
cool. I'll speak to you then.
Awesome, Sargon. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.